All right, we're back to AI again. Josh has a little story about something he experienced, or at least someone he knows experienced, and I'm gonna ask him questions about it. So go ahead, Josh.
Well, I'm always looking for when a new tool comes out, how can I use it and is it actually useful in my life yet? Like, I'm not one of those guys that goes out and seeks a tool just because the tool exists. But this week I had a cool experience where a client had, um, it was actually payroll related. We had gotten a set of scanned time cards that were handwritten. Uh, Almost all of them were handwritten,
I
and
think
some of the handwriting was pretty bad. And so they were set up in such a way I was like, okay, I can easily redact any personal information. I just kept like first names and time entries and threw it into Perplexity along with the finished Excel sheet that I always create and was like, here's last week's, train yourself because I'm going to have you do it this week. And then popped in this week's and Excel sheet, and it perfectly got the formatting and all the numbers correct on what hours, what days, in and out times, and totals. Some of the handwriting was really bad. I was really expecting it to screw it up somewhere. Um, but there's always a human check at the end. Like, I'll always go through and just do it quick. Like, yep, that's 8 a.m. That's 2:30 p.m. Yep, 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 yep. Um, and so it's not like there's no human check on the end of the system. But yeah, it did it perfectly in like 30 seconds. And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So this week, I've just been like running around being like, what other things could I? That one is at least a dependable one that happens a lot. So taking the time to test it with AI will actually save time on the back end. Because it's going to be repeated over and over. So I was really excited. I understand that's somewhat mundane, but automating the mundane tasks is exactly what I want AI to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually have I'll let you finish if you have more, but I have a very similar story. Was there anything else to that story?
No, not really. I was just telling my coworker, and so we've got some other stuff we're going to try to work on possibly today.
Yeah,
But yeah, I love it.
no, that's awesome. So I was working with a realtor, and I'm not sure if I've shared this story before on the podcast, but he had a list of checks, who the check was to, how much the check was for, like what the amount was, the date, etc. But for some reason, I honestly don't know why he did this, but he wrote it on a piece of paper. So he was like looking through his bank account and scrolling through, and instead of typing them out as he saw them, he just wrote them, which I mean maybe saved like 5 seconds because he could write it versus typing one-handed. But anyways, the point is he was like, "Hey, can you put these in an Excel sheet?" I was like, "Why didn't you put these in an Excel sheet yourself?" But uh, what I did was I took a picture, sent it into ChatGPT, and it got 95% correct. The thing was the handwriting was a little bad, so there was a couple where it misspelled something, but obviously I was checking. The coolest part was there were some where like he put the quotes, like if it's a line that's the exact same, like maybe he paid the same person, it recognized that and pulled those same names like correctly, which I was like, wow, it recognized that those quotes means that it's like the same person that was above. And there was one where it was like split out. So it was like one name and then split out into like two amounts. And then it split it into two lines with this amount and this amount. And they were both correct. So that was kind of insane. And I know exactly how you feel with that because it's something where you're like, maybe it'll get a couple right, but this is pretty hard. And then it does it. And you just are kind of blown away by that. So that's really cool. How much time did it usually take you guys to put in those time cards?
Um, those ones aren't too bad. I mean, it'll take me anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes to put them in. The way they are now, it's not bad, but they used to be more complex in how much information it wasn't standardized. So you're sitting there like interpreting this terrible handwriting that's also been put in incorrectly. And you're like, I think they meant to put this, but it's not as bad anymore. It's probably 20 to 30 minutes, but
So to put them into an Excel sheet, 20 to 30 minutes, or
yeah, yeah.
wow,
Maybe more like 20.
Perplexity like cut it down by 99%.
Yeah, by a
Other than
lot.
you
I mean,
check.
yeah, right. I still check them. Um, that the reacting took a little bit of time, but I think I figured out
Oh
how I
yeah,
could do it in probably like 60 seconds next time.
yeah.
And I technically have the pro perplexity, but like it says, do the little toggle that's like, don't save my data to train the model, but it's not my data. If it was my data, I wouldn't care as much.
Yeah.
But it's not mine, so I'm not gonna risk it.
Is there any personal information on those other than the name, the first and last name?
Sometimes there's a note section on those. Sometimes the note section will have information. Honestly, I don't really look at the note section because it doesn't really change the part that I do. But rather than go through and check to see if I think sometimes there's client names of our client, their clients. But I didn't want to go through and check them all. Just easier to put a
Yeah.
black
Well,
box over this.
my question would be, is there anything that would tie a client's name back to a client's personal data? Because, and again, this is definitely a call from your boss and the client itself. Like, I guess I wouldn't do it without talking to them, but if it's just someone's name, then like if there's no actual personal data to tie that name to, then do you need to redact the name? Because it's like, unless it has, maybe where they worked. And I
Business
get,
entity information.
but
This
yeah,
business, that business.
but I guess if the time card was just like me, Caleb, my last name, and then a couple time entries, I couldn't really see that data being taken and done
Right.
because my name would already be in the internet anyways with social media and stuff. So I don't know. You
Yeah,
could,
first name
I
and
guess,
time is what I redacted it down to, but some of those notes can be pretty extended, like a couple sentences per line. So they do put some details in there that I would probably mostly just like entity related, did work at such and such.
yeah, that's fair.
But
That's fair. Yeah. I was just trying to think of like what the framework would be behind because it is important to make sure that you're not putting sensitive data in there, but also if there's something that's not necessarily sensitive, then I think it would be
it doesn't
okay.
matter.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
If it's just a general description of whatever, I moved
did some
bricks
yard work
around or yeah,
for
all
five
right.
hours. It's like, all right,
Uh-huh.
cool. This person
I
did some
worked in
yard work
Excel.
for 5 hours.
Right. Yeah. Uh, uh it just brings back the idea I have on my task list just in my personal life to test using agentic AI on some task. Um, but I haven't yet. Uh, and it just brings that back up. Like, man, I really want agentic AI to be a thing. I just am not prepared to be completely um, trusting of it
Yeah,
as far
that's fair.
as clicking on all the right things and whatnot. But like, okay, it's good enough to interpret that data. It can interpret fine. And now if it could execute too, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Right now, I'm trying to build to like a task management a, a more of a custom task management app for myself because Google Tasks is what I've been using and it's fine, but there's a couple things that are really annoying about it. So I'm trying to build one myself, just one to have a task management app that will be very customized to myself that will actually help me to get things done. But two, so that I can just practice using AI to build stuff because
Mm.
that's going to help me later on if I ever need to do that for a client. And one cool thing that I thought to try and add, which is going to take a little bit because I've never done it before, but to connect to Claude's API so that whenever there's a task, whenever I've created a task, there'll be a little button that says break down this task into smaller tasks. And what I do is I press the button, give Claude a little prompt, and then it will take that task and create subtasks, which would be pretty cool because if
Yeah.
I have, like create or plan this client's project launch, that's great, but that's super vague and that's not really a good task.
Hmm.
But if Claude could break it down into, get a discovery document, um, price out the project, send the proposal, like really concrete steps, that would be super helpful. And I feel like I would get more done. But I thought it was cool because, well, I haven't done it yet, but it will be cool once I do it, once I finish it and Claude can break down my steps or break down my tasks.
Do you use Claude primarily?
Yeah, I was using chat, but I did switch to Claude because I think Anthropic takes ethics a little more seriously than OpenAI does. And if I'm gonna be promoting values-based AI use, that I gotta follow that myself. And so I wanted to align myself more with the company. I mean, I'm not gonna be like super wishy-washy and just switch at the drop of a hat. But overall, from what I've heard, I have seen that Anthropic does take that more seriously. So I figured I'm just gonna switch and I don't even really use chat, or I won't even need to use chat that much other than maybe images. And so that's enough on the free version. I can get a couple images here and there. But yeah, so I started using Claude.
So it's not for functional reasons necessarily. Like it doesn't have some feature that ChatGPT is desperately lacking.
It's definitely better at coding, which is
Mm.
very important. But uh, the biggest reason was the values thing because I don't know. With all the books that I've been reading and stuff, I want to make sure that I'm promoting stuff that is not going to take over the world. But I feel like OpenAI might be pushing for more progress, I guess, without caution than Anthropic is. And so I just want to align myself with Anthropic rather than
What
OpenAI.
that one of my coworkers, he's the one that uses AI a lot, just in his own personal use, said he's moving away from ChatGPT, and I didn't press him on that because we were in the middle of a meeting, and but I was curious why. So why do you say you feel like OpenAI is not? Because I don't know. I haven't kept up with any of that, like the news about the companies themselves.
Well, a couple things. So Anthropic's founders have warned of like, hey, if we're not careful with our AI, then it will take over the world if we don't ever question what we're doing with it. So I was like, okay, I haven't, other than generally Sam Altman being like, oh, we need to use AI well. I haven't really heard him say that necessarily. Maybe he has. Um, but also another thing is that OpenAI was supposed to come out with like an explicit opt-in version. And I was like, why would I ever want to do that? That's just that's taking what people are already addicted to on the internet and 100xing it. And so like I don't know if I want to be now if Anthropic did that, I'd be like, really? Why are you guys doing that too? But that was like a big one because I don't want to support that necessarily. I don't think that it's good for people to have access to AI that can create explicit images for them and probably explicit videos and stuff. So that was the second one. And then the third one was basically when Gemini came out with their model that beat all the benchmarks for OpenAI and Anthropic and all the other LLMs. I'm pretty sure OpenAI, like Sam Altman basically was like, all right, we're working 20-hour days. Like, we have to push better AI models. Like we have to, there's no, I don't know. I don't even know how to communicate it necessarily, but there was just no caution. It was like, we're just going to be the best. We're going to push for progress no matter what. Like, who cares what happens, basically, is how I felt like he was responding to it. So I don't know. There's just a couple of things that are kind of irk me a little bit. So I was like, I'm going to
Mm,
switch to Claude. I'd
gotcha.
rather use. But ChatGPT is used by like 800 million people every month.
Yeah.
So it's not like
Right.
it's going to go away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually was thinking about our previous conversation about Against the Machine,
Did you use
which
your
I have
credit?
not read yet. No, it's sitting in my account. I got the email. It's like, you got a credit, but I haven't done anything with it yet. Um, I can't remember what I was listening to or what I was reading. I probably wasn't actually reading it because I haven't had any time. I was probably listening to it, but or what led me to this thought, but was thinking about how so many things in life are like required early adopters who are willing to spend egregious amounts of money on the thing, um, or like researchers who are willing to like double down on a stupid idea that doesn't get used for years, but then eventually is very useful. Uh, and I thought about AI actually, and how you're like talking about progress for the sake of progress. And I was thinking that of some inventions created by people who are obsessed with their technology and their inventions, are their immediate usefulness is not apparent. But you got some guy who's obsessed about doing the thing, and eventually what his technology is gets used later in something else. Uh, like I recognize that this might be a bad example, but um, George Washington Carver, like, just was obsessive about the peanut and the sweet potato. But now, like, every single American eats peanut butter. Um, and it took years
Fortunately,
for
with a
that to
lot of sugar.
happen. Yeah, huh?
Said unfortunately with peanut butter with a lot of sugar. But yeah,
Which is why you should eat the Smucker's brand, the
yep.
Smucker's natural brand,
You do
which
like the
is
all natural. It's
delicious.
just salt and peanuts. That's what we do too.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It at first it was a change because it's a little runnier, but now I'm
Yeah.
used to it, so
But then
it's
you
fine.
just mix it up.
Yeah,
No,
and I
actually,
don't
what we
really
do,
notice a difference.
we like flip it upside down so that it all just, I don't know, squishes together.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's still
because the
really good.
oil and the peanuts separate. I
I
use
can eat
my
all four of these.
immersion blender and just stick it in the jar.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, like so, some of those things take advancement for the sake of advancement. Some crazy dude working on it, but then get integrated in the television or in cell phones or whatever. We need those crazy people,
Have
unfortunately.
you turned off automatic content recognition on your TV?
I don't have a smart TV. My TV is like um whatever was after the CRT TVs, but before flat screens.
Honestly,
My
respect
TV's
for
like
that
that thick.
because, like, well, I guess I bought my smart TV back when I was a techie. No, I would still say I'm pretty much a techie, but back when I wasn't as intentional about certain technology. And apparently, there's something called automatic content recognition. And so basically what happens is the company that either owns the TV or the streaming service that you are on watches every single piece of content that you've ever, which I mean, it makes sense in the back of your mind, like, oh yeah, they probably know what I'm watching. But if you think about it, they're watching every piece of content that you've ever seen on your TV. And they're building a model that will try and capture exactly what you like. So you'll spend more time on TV, more ads that you like. And when I sat down and thought about that, I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. So I turned off automatic content recognition and a couple of the privacy settings that are defaulted to on. I was like the lack of privacy settings, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
that are defaulted to on. I turned all those off. It's just
Yeah,
crazy.
that's
It's
kind of
just
weird too, because like I use my TV as a monitor for my computer sometimes. So that would be a little concerning.
yeah. I don't know. That's how big tech works. They're incentivized to keep people on longer. But if you read Stolen Focus, although I think the guy from the author for Stolen Focus has run into some controversy because he's apparently like plagiarized before in previous books. And so people didn't
Oh,
give him full credit for all of the interviews he's done. He said people were like, he's probably making stuff up, but generally the principles are very accurate. So it's just
mm-hmm.
the minute stuff like, was this study actually accurate? Or, did this scientist actually do this study? I don't know. But the
Well, that could
principles.
be important. But
Well, the thing
yeah.
is, what I'm saying is like principally, he's correct. If that, I don't know. He, it's hard to, I mean, he put extra resources on his website. And so I've been checking them and he sounds, or it sounds like he found real evidence. But that's why it's hard because someone on Reddit saying that he's wrong and him saying that he's right, like, how do you actually
Mm-hmm.
figure it out?
Yeah.
Because he puts links to the studies, but then I don't know. There's just not enough time.
Yeah, like as we've talked about previously, links to studies can sometimes, not all studies are done well, and many of them are done poorly. And how do we, as laymen, detect that or have the time to? Like, yes, oftentimes when somebody puts a reference to a study, that's as much as we have time for, and we think, "Oh, wow, that's cool." But yeah, so I mean,
And then,
that is a real concern. But
yeah.
also, it's a well studied subject by this point, so. Yeah, you would assume that some of his statements are grounded in reality, even if he was a gigantic fraud. But it sounds like maybe there's just some discussion of a few resources. But
And
yeah, I think I
that's
know what
why I
you're
take
getting at.
everything with a grain of salt. Like I said, when we were talking about all this stuff, like every book that I've been reading, I'm not, oh, this guy is 100% right. I'm going to believe every single thing that he says. But if my filter says, okay, yeah, this person, you know, big tech is incentivized to have you on their platform longer. That makes total sense with how ads work and how social media works. Whether his study on how many minutes a kid spends on social media per day is 100% accurate, okay, if I'm gonna go use that study as a resource for myself, I should go check it. But generally, the idea that big tech is incentivized to have you on their platform longer, that makes total
Right,
sense.
seems pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how I think about
Right.
it. Like I'm not going to promote a resource that he talked about without going and checking, but
Hmm.
I will promote ideas that he talked about because they make sense logically with
Yeah.
how the world is working.
Right. Right. Yeah. I I I definitely agree with the premise that our focus is messed up. But yeah, it is frustrating to me because what I was thinking yesterday, like kind of on the focus topic tangentially related, which is that people are consuming lots of media, but they're not necessarily getting good utility for it. I was in a meeting, a pretty long meeting yesterday, me and a coworker, and the coworker was talking about how they're very productive, which means they also get a lot of work, so they're very busy. And there were like 2 times where I mentioned, well, what about like doing this, or what about this tool? And that particular person had not had time to test out certain tools, or didn't know that the feature was there, or whatever. And I was like, man, it sucks so much that as humans, like, the tool to help you with this thing could exist. You may even have access to it for free, but just because nobody has told it to you, or just because you like didn't stumble upon it when you were doing your work, you spend an extra hour. And then that got me thinking about, like, in a workplace setting, since you're working in AI, have you thought about, like, what is a process that you can do to share information between teams? I think at a previous employer, part of what we would do for idea generation is supervisors at a certain level had a mandatory department switch. Like, if you spent so long at a department, you then had to switch and supervise at a separate department. And I think partly that was because you may have good ideas being in this department, switch and be able to bring them over. Like, it kind of was the, like, most of the time it's going to do nothing, but a small percentage of the time we're going to actually learn something useful. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when it comes to AI, there is a certain software that I've talked to you about that gives some clarity on usage throughout the company that I genuinely think would, in terms of what people use, would give some good clarity. But generally, for communication ideas, I think, even though it seems counterintuitive because, you're having a meeting, I think having like bi-weekly or monthly innovation meeting where the whole point of the meeting is let's hear some ideas, uh, might be a good option. Because I know for the company that you work at, I mean, technically you have different managers, so like maybe different departments, I guess. But everyone does work pretty closely together. Um, so if you just had a meeting where everyone was invited to the meeting once a month and everyone came with 3 ideas or something that they think could be implemented to either make things faster, uh, make things higher quality, make things more efficient, then from that meeting, you just keep a running list of all the ideas and start implementing one by one. That would be my biggest idea. That might be my biggest advice is just have a meeting where people bring up ideas. Because sometimes they come out naturally in other meetings, but there's probably not a process for keeping track of all the ideas that people have, like officially. So if you had a list, like here are all the ideas we have to make things more efficient, then you just chose one each week or each month to implement. I think that would
Mm-hmm.
bring out a lot more idea communication.
Yeah. That sounds boring, though.
It sounds
Yeah.
boring until you
That
get into the meeting and people have some great ideas.
right.
Well, I
That
mean,
that was kind of the
clearly,
only thing I came to, was like, hey, here was my interesting thing. I found this thing and I've been using it. Other people might find this useful. Here's my contribution to this. This might be useful if anybody wants to use it thing.
yeah,
So yeah, similar idea. Uh, yeah, maybe a certain software could have that feature to it's okay. Don't don't add too many features. You'll get away from what it's made to be.
yeah. Well, actually, there was a new feature added recently. Uh, Not to plug, but It's called AdoptOS. But the thing is, the new feature that was added was an approved vendor list. So as soon as you go through vetting
Mm,
AI software, you can add it to the approved vendors or not approved vendors. Then people in the company who have access to the software to AdoptOS can go and see what AI vendors they're allowed to use, which
yeah.
is pretty cool. And there's direct access to the AI website so that they can go create an account or whatever, see what the AI actually does, which is pretty cool.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I need to get back on there and test some of the new stuff.
Yeah. Also, there's an AI advisor that you can conversate with to talk through like
Oh,
what AI roadmap, what vendors you need to think about vetting, and what metric you should use. It's pretty cool. I'll show you some more later. But
okay.
yeah,
Cool.
for anyone watching, AdoptOS, it's pretty cool.
I know a guy.
Yeah,
That's all I had today.
that's all I have. All right. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you like this episode, give us a 5-star review on Spotify. We would love to hear from you guys in the comments or email jc.unscripted@gmail.com. And that is the pod. We'll see you on the next one.